Frankly, many of us have been around for a long time are still trying to figure this out. So where do we go and what do we do when we get there? So I'm Chris Poser. I'm the manager of the Secure Endpoint and Application Management team within DoIT Departmental Support. This is my first time presenting formally at the IT Professionals Conference, but I've attended many prior sessions. I've been on campus for 25 years, starting here as a student in 1997 and becoming a full-time employee in DoIT in 2000, where I used carbon copy paper receipts and checked in computers for repair. But eventually I graduated with a degree in psychology. And after surveying the employment landscape, I decided to stick with DoIT and became a full-time repair technician. After a while, I ended up leading our repair team and then transitioned to desktop support, became a team lead for our nascent endpoint management team. And now I manage a team of my own remarkable IT professionals. The reason I'm here today is that over the years, I've attempted to orient dozens of students and professional IT staff to the campus IT landscape. And I know how hard those conversations can be and how difficult it is to wrap one's mind around how IT works at UW. I mean, it's hard starting in a new place under the best of circumstances, much less one as big and unwieldy as UW. And I'm here because I want to do my part to make things a little bit better. So I'm joined today by Sarah Tate Peterson, David Parter, and Craig Cook, who will introduce themselves and their backgrounds in a moment. The four of us, along with Jason Erdman, Sue Weir, and Laura Grady, and Sabrina Messer, have been in a conversation for the last few months about how we can make things easier for new and existing IT folks as they find their way within this large, complicated institution we call home. So together, we're hoping to create a resource for what one can expect as an IT professional at UW. And it also contains a curated set of resources that folks can use to help orient themselves to the UW-Madison IT environment and find the information they need. So we wanted to extend that conversation to all of you in attendance today. And so today's session has three goals. We'd like to have a discussion about the journey that brought you to UW, because understanding how we got here is an important part of understanding what unique experiences each of us bring to the table, and also serves as a nice icebreaker. We'd like to crowdsource ideas about helpful resources all of you folks have found, which have helped to orient you to the campus IT environment. So this could be things like certain websites, certain places, certain communities, or even certain events and experiences, like attending the IT Professionals Conference. And finally, we like to solicit volunteers to review and provide feedback on the materials we're putting together. So I'll pass things off to Sarah to introduce herself next.
Yes, thanks, Chris. Sarah Tate Peterson here, IT policy writer and analyst with the Office of Cybersecurity. I have been in this role for about 2.5 years, and I've been on campus for roughly 15, serving in various capacities. The reason why I'm here today is because I believe that it is crucial that new IT staff get the tools and resources they need in order to be successful in their roles. If we are able to give folks the tools straight out of the gate, we will be able to retain the top talent. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to next, Mr. Parter.
Well, thank you. So I'm David Parter. I'm the IT director at Computer Science, and I've been involved in various things in this area. Along with some of the people presenting today, we wrote a guidelines and advice document about 5 years ago, which we've been updating. And I wanted to be part of the updating and expanding of that. I also wanted to make sure, some of you will laugh at this, I wanted to make sure to bring in the distributed IT perspective so that it's not just focused on central IT, but includes the distributed aspect and how to find your colleagues and how to find your way in different settings. And Craig, I think you're next.
Yeah, Craig Cook. Recently I became the Active Directory team and service lead for identity and access management with DoIT. Prior, I was with the libraries for about 8 years, and even before that, I was with DoIT initially with user services as the assistant InfoLabs manager. The reason I got on board here is, I have a view from both distributed IT unit and now being a part of central IT for the second time that I feel like I could provide a good lens for kind of viewing this community stuff and these resources. But I've been very passionate about trying to foster some sense of just general IT community on campus. And this just seems like a very good opportunity to make an impact. So that's why I got involved in this work. So we will move on to the meat of this session, which involves breakout and discussion here. So going over some of these logistics, we're going to break out into rooms, probably about 5 to 7 per room. And we'll be in those rooms for 30 minutes for a small group discussion. And then there will be share out to the whole group of just brief share outs of kind of what came out of the group as general answers to the questions that you're seeing here. There is breakout materials that will outline kind of the instructions for the breakout room, where you can add on the members of the room, and you can assign a note taker and somebody who's going to share out, and that note taker will take notes in that so that we can use those documents, compile them later, and take this information to help inform us on kind of how to advertise resources to new campus IT folks. Just a note about these breakout materials, you do need to use a UW-Madison email to access the materials. So signing into Google with your NetID is the way to do that. I know that there's some folks here who potentially don't have that WIS.edu email. So just request access and I will grant it if that's the case. So once we get into these breakout rooms, take a couple minutes to silently reflect on these questions, think about your answers. Then go ahead and introduce yourselves, where you come from, that sort of thing. And then select a note taker and a person who will be sharing out. And then take about 5 minutes per person to kind of respond to the questions. That can be very organic conversation and discussion, but just make sure everybody has an opportunity to do some sharing. So with that, we will transition to breakout rooms here.
Oh, hang on a sec.
Oh,
I just want to,
David.
For those of you who either started at UW a long time ago or can't remember when you started, or in a new role, you could expand this question to be, what resources do you advise new employees to use? What do it doesn't, if you're in a different role now, but you're helping a new employee, you can give your answers of what resources you're finding valuable for your new employees or your new colleagues.
Thanks, David.
This is really cool. As co-host, I can see as people join the rooms.
I did see the number of participants drop about 50 once we started talking about breakout rooms.
I saw that as well. I had mixed feelings because when there was 101, I was thinking that's a little unwieldy.
I did quickly create more breakout material documents.
I saw that.
Up to 15 rooms, but then that became unnecessary.
Well, I hope the few remaining folks will join their rooms because we still have a few people that haven't joined.
Well, they like us better. Or they got distracted by work and, are on a different computer doing something.
Yep. Know how that goes.
As people are coming in late, I'm trying to move them to rooms and balance it, but yeah, it's kind of complicated.
Things seem to be going well so far. We need to find some ways to entertain ourselves while we're waiting for that half hour. Or maybe we should take one of the sheets and answer the questions ourselves.
Is there, sure, we could do that.
And see if we come up with anything that's different from what folks come up with.
There's only 10 breakout rooms, so we can use any of the later ones.
So
Okay.
Let's use 11.
All right.
As much as I'd love to participate, I got too many windows open right now and I'm trying to slide back it.
All right.
This is all weird for me because I'm actually using Windows for this. And it only has one screen also. I'm used to two.
I have whole bunches of screens open myself. Well, we don't really need to go into a breakout room. We could just talk about stuff in general.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that, we could use the sheet is what I'm saying. Not the actual room.
Yep. Got it.
I'm just shocked that David Parter said I'm using a Windows machine.
That's because I planned ahead for this even and tested it because the Zoom part of Zoom events works just fine on Linux, but the lobby and the itinerary, all those features only work on Windows and Mac. They don't work on an iPad, they don't work on a phone, and they don't work on Linux.
I got a question for you, David.
Yeah.
Your audio seems to be fading in and out. I think do you have a unidirectional microphone on your computer that's making you, when you move your head around, messing up with your sound?
Quite possibly. Or
does anybody else notice that?
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed it a little bit too.
I just manually raised the volume. It's the mic on the webcam sitting on the monitor. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I actually got a Windows computer in my office just for this event, so that some of the extra features of Zoom events would be available. So we'll see how this all works.
Yeah.
Well, so far so good. And thanks again Ellen, to you and Mandy and the rest of the crew for putting this together and helping out. I couldn't imagine, Mandy, what you're doing right now with like intercepting people and shooting them into breakout rooms and just organizing all of the back end stuff. Just how complex it really is.
That's why I had Mandy do it.
It's
Thank you, Mandy.
If you spy on the
You're welcome.
documents, you can see they're being edited.
I've only moderated. I haven't done the tech background yet on a session, and I've always been a little reluctant to do it. For that exact reason, if I have to switch people in and out. I think I can handle the questions though, if any come up.
It's pretty intuitive. It's just when people are asking about settings that aren't in the application and you have to go like to the actual website to configure them. That's when things get a little dicey as far as tech support. It gets really interesting when you're supporting the Zoom call, but you're also supporting a bunch of in-person presentation gear to kind of broadcast a whole room. That's when things get interesting.
I bet.
Which is what I was doing for the libraries.
So hybrid presentations are a little sketchier, more difficult than all one or the other.
Yeah, you basically you need a committed 1 to 2 tech people to run all that if you want an in-person portion of a presentation and then a virtual component.
That makes sense.
I also think you need whoever's leading the meeting really has to be mindful of including everyone, including the virtual participants, and conveying to the virtual participants things that happen in the room that aren't captured, perhaps. And really, it's a full-time job to, it always should be, even in an in-person meeting, it's a full-time job to include everyone in the meeting, but especially when half are in person and half are virtual, it's even more work.
Yeah, we had a separate virtual facilitator, and we also ended up having a projector screen dedicated to the chat window in Zoom, so the people sitting in the room could still read chat and kind of follow along there.
That's a good idea.
It's interesting. I did hear that some people's response to in-person meetings after 2 years of virtual was, "Where's the chat?"
Right. Well, and the challenge with Zoom is you can't join the chat without joining the presentation.
Right.
With Teams, you can participate in chat while not being in the meeting. And people in the room, still wanted to participate in chat, which is something we really couldn't facilitate. But we did have chat showing, broadcasting in the room, based on feedback.
Yeah.
I did get a screen grab of the breakout rooms, FYI.
Oh, good.
I don't know if they'll be perfectly accurate because some people are like filtering in, but I did that recently because I did it right away, and then I deleted those and got new ones because things have been shifting.
All right, thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
How are we doing on time?
It's 11:21.
And
probably 11. Do we call them back? It was supposed to be a half hour, and I didn't pay attention to the time when you finished speaking. So would we say 11:38? That's the end time?
It's probably like 11:40.
Yeah.
okay.
Because I sent the document, or I sent the link at 11:07, and then if we gave 3 minutes of additional speaking time after that, then we're looking at about like 11:40 for the callback.
Yeah, this is a question for Mandy. Is when she sets up the breakout rooms, does she add a length of breakout time in the room? Or does the notification that the meeting is almost over get sent by the person who set up the breakout rooms? She did not set up a duration. Okay.
When
Okay.
you close the room, then it actually starts that last countdown timer.
Okay.
But
which is maybe
like
60 seconds.
Yeah, but maybe at 11:30 we should just broadcast to all that a 10-minute warning.
Yeah, because the 1 minute break, quit is almost too short. You can barely even complete what your sentences are and say bye to everybody. So especially if they have to do a report out, they want to make sure they've got their notes and things in order before they leave the breakout room. Because I was just in a couple of breakout rooms that they had like a 1 minute or less, it's like you got 1 minute and we barely got time to wrap up what we were saying. So yeah, I don't think 1 minute's enough.
I think that's the built-in Zoom feature that when you close the room, it does the 1 minute warning.
Mandy, at 11:25, can you send out a halfway kind of warning? Just in case, there's a room where one person's been talking for 15 minutes and
we've all been there.
Yeah. Thanks, Mandy. Are you technically out of office, David?
What do you mean by that?
Oh, you have Dave Parter is out of office and may not respond in Teams.
Oh, I never use Teams.
Oh.
It's tied to your Outlook calendar, so if you're like at the conference, it'll auto-generate
Well, worse than that, it's tied to what it thinks is my Outlook calendar, which is not the calendar I use, which is always out of office. Because there's a message saying to people, if you send email to this or you put something on this calendar, you're using the wrong one. Because, well, Office 365 lets you have multiple calendars. Teams assumes that your net ID is your email address, is your calendar, like many other applications. I only use Teams when people invite me to a meeting.
We could maybe use this time for meditation.
Hey, Craig.
Yep.
In the questions share out notes thing, the second question is what resources do you still reference today? But in the breakout room 11 thing, the second question is basically the same as the first question, except that it tacked on the or as you help new employees today.
I made a big mistake. I didn't put the second question in there. Oh, God. I swapped out the wrong question.
Well, can you just, somebody's in breakout room 10, so maybe you can just barge in there and put the new question in.
Let's see here.
Is that?
I can start dropping that second question into all the breakout materials.
You can just do a broadcast, give them the
sure
question.
Okay, let's make sure I'm doing the right one. And I don't just repeat the same question for the first third time.
What was the second question?
Here,
Go back a slide.
that's the one. Yeah.
Are you gonna just edit the docs live, or are you just gonna broadcast message to all?
Mandy just broadcasted.
Okay. Yeah, because we're not in a breakout room, we don't see those messages.
I just realized there's a broadcast message to all option under the breakout rooms.
Right. Because right now, chat all is just us.
Yep. Or the people who are still in the, because we've
Yeah.
got a few folks, Keith, Sean, and Thomas, that are listening to our chat.
Huh?
Hello, all of you.
I tried to send everyone to breakout rooms as they come in, but sometimes I don't notice. So apologies if somebody's here. And I think Keith, for some reason, it won't allow me to send you to one. So I apologize for that.
It says he's a guest, so maybe he's signed in, has a sign-in issue. With Zoom. We given the 10-minute heads up, or did we do the middle? This is halfway through message.
We did the mid. We can do like a 5.
Okay.
In about 5 minutes.
Well, it's 11:30. So in 5, that means there's 5 minutes left if we're coming back at 11:40.
Correct. Yeah, Mandy just gave a 10 right now.
Okay.
So we can do a 5 in about 5 minutes. Thanks, Mandy.
Thank you. Where do you see that a message was sent, or is it in the?
There was a little banner at the top of the presentation window
I
that popped up.
I missed it.
But since I think it shows up in chat in the rooms, maybe. But since we're not in the breakout rooms, it's not popping up.
Right.
I found that in breakout rooms, sometimes I've been focused on the Google Doc and not actually on the Zoom, and I missed those messages.
That's happened to me too. So when we reconvene, you'll take over getting the report backs, and then I'll probably just, do the closing if you have any questions, because I doubt if we'll have time for questions if everybody's going to be reporting out.
Yeah, we're gonna have to keep it quick.
Okay. So I'll do the closing that just says if you have any questions. We've run out of time for questions. Closing and say you guys will be happy to answer by email. And they should be able to get a hold of you just because they know your names, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, Dale. People are in breakout rooms, by the way. Is the lunch break right after this?
Yes.
So we have more great sessions coming up. Next up is how long is the lunch break? Does anybody know?
I think it's a question when the next sessions are, basically.
Okay.
I
will look. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out where find the session schedule, I guess, which I will do right now.
Looks like the following
12:45.
Yeah.
12:45. Okay,
Yep.
So next up is our lunch break with sessions starting up again at 12:45.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me? There we go.
Yes.
My mic just stopped working for a minute. Yeah, there's 45-minute break after this.
Okay.
And we have a few more people join. I'm gonna put people in rooms if they want to go to them. You're welcome to. If you don't, that's okay.
We're gonna wrap the breakout rooms in about 5-6 minutes. But then there will be a share out where people are sharing out.
Are there any places we should recommend people to go during the lunch break if they want to stay connected? Does that make sense?
The lobby.
The lobby, the Zoom lobby.
Okay. I'll say you're welcome to join the Zoom, the lobby.
Nobody will see the chat until we come back to the main room, Ellen. So
no, I'm just typing this to myself because I have a script that I was going to read out, and I just realized when I was reading it, it's this we had a standard script, and I realized when I was reading it that it was set up more for the next session is going to come up right away versus we're going to have a 45-minute lunch break. So I need to revise it a little bit.
Can you do a 5-minute warning, Mandy, please? Thank you.
Probably should have muted my mic while I was doing that because I was sort of talking to myself.
Looks like room 8 is pretty much done talking.
Welcome to come back if they'd like. think you can click the close now and it'll give them that 60 seconds.
How is this?
Welcome back, everyone.
Okay, it looks like everyone's back. So we have a little bit of time left, and we're going to ask to hear from your rooms what you came up with. What were your aha moments or something really interesting you want to share with us? And I'm just going to do them in order. Breakout room 1, could your reporter unmute and tell us what you discussed?
I will need to unmute their speaker. So
Oh,
if someone can put me in the chat, put the name of their speaker in the chat.
It looks like David Lorman. Are you able to let people unmute themselves at this point?
Okay, thank you, host. Thanks much. I was the note taker, so I guess I get to be the reader of the notes. I'll just take right down the list. Everybody can hear me okay, I hope? Okay, because I'm using one of the very bad Dell 7420s that are the scourge of audio on campus. Okay. Starting out for question number 1.
I can unmute the purchase.
Starting out with the first question, putting a little historical perspective on it, one of the comments was 17 years ago, whisk lists, email, word of mouth were really good ways of joining, at that time, campus hosted groups like Tech Partners and so on and so forth. Other folks mentioned knowledge base, especially as you ramp up in a new job and new position, using documentation, for example, as a web person, diving into ADA documentation and really getting up to speed on that. Campus hosted wiki, using some personal tools, keeping track of and using lots of bookmarks. Again, more group membership, IT professionals, MIST, and mentorship programs. Other folks found HR orientation, online and in person, to be most valuable. Some of the online stuff was developed specifically to their jobs. And then the in-person stuff was a great opportunity for meet and greets. And then also during that time, daily meetings with leaders. For the second question, tools and being Microsoft Teams, especially during the startup of the pandemic and being able to collaborate. Again, lots and lots of emphasis and discussion on the KB and extending other tools into professional help desk software like Sharewell, Jira, and Solar. I have it here, sorry. Using other tools, Qualtrics, Whisk mail service accounts, Eloqua for mass mailing and communications. Again, back to the campus culture, lots of in-person opportunities to communicate, especially as we do move back to face-to-face work and really embracing the culture of the campus and the fact that we're a learning environment with professional development opportunities. Leveraging even professional development grants and funding opportunities there to pursue advanced education, and using more learning tools like LinkedIn Learning. And I think I got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Group two, one or two aha moments from your discussion.
That would be Vince Abramson. If you need to unmute, Ellen.
Thank you. I am unmuted. We had a lot of plus ones from group one, but for aha moments for us was communities of practice. We had a lot of those, and then the second, we had a lot of discussions about that one. And then the coworkers and the peer partners was one that was not mentioned. That we found to be quite helpful when we first started, and then kind of moving on, because through the peer partners, we got access and suggestions to the tech partners and other listservs and other, like LinkedIn Learning, previously known as Lynda. And then as far as the resources that we found most valuable that we would suggest to new employees today would be to attend the new hire orientation through OHR, and then hop on a tech partners as those listservs. We found to be very helpful.
Thank you. Group three, one or two aha moments.
So for group three, like has been said, there's a lot of plus ones on the beginning stuff. But we also, especially for those of us who have multiple buildings around campus that they support, the maps.wisc.edu was great for learning how to get around. And then, just the sort of the different conferences like this one, and community is great. And then the outages page that Do It puts out.
Thank you. Group four.
Yeah, so group four started with a trying to clarify the question of resources. Like, are these resources that help you feel like you're a part of the community on campus, or are they resources that help you in your day-to-day job? And so we kind of talked a little bit about that, but we kind of landed on a few, like the campus software library being a huge boon for departmental groups that were managing their own software licenses, specifically me and then some others. Department intranets, that's a good way to get oriented within your own little corner. But then we also talked about relationships being the currency at which you have the ability to have more resources, right? So having more relationships, how do you get that? Well, these communities of practice came up, as well as professional development programs like the MOR groups, the Lead From Where You Are programs, or the things like that, where you can meet people from around campus in a new environment and then start project relationships outside of that.
Thank you. Group five, your aha moments.
Hi all. The main ones have already been discussed by everyone else. We talked a bit about the the campus tour. If you can do the new employee orientation and take the campus tour, it's just neat to see the campus, for what it is, how big it is, and how many amazing, different areas there are, and all the different trivia that happens across campus, that it's easy to forget, that we have a working dairy, for example, at Babcock Hall, or that we have, some of the best libraries in the nation, or, DNA research, you know, you name it. We're what penicillin, right? Was us as well, or polio vaccine? I don't even remember now. So many things that it's just hard to remember all of them, and it's easy to forget when we're, you know, slugging away on something that you know, we may not see the direct impact right away. But it's cool that we're still part of this giant organization that has, you know, advanced the whole world and continues to do so. We also talked about how many cool little museums there are on campus to get you, you know, connected to the campus. So the Geology Museum, the Zoology Museum at Nolan Hall, the Physics Museum, all the different engineering museums, and just how cool all that stuff is too.
Well, thank you. I just allowed everybody to unmute themselves because the rest of our rooms didn't identify a speaker. So group 6, whoever your speaker is, please unmute and give us your report.
One of the big takeaways that I think everyone agreed on that was a really useful resource was Microsoft Teams. The ability to communicate with people, whether it's real-time, synchronous, asynchronous, face-to-face, simple chat was really useful. Using the different channels in Teams to segregate information and kind of prioritize what's important versus what's just chatter. That was really useful as well. And some of the things that other people echoed too is community practices as well. Our team also has a Google Doc for acronyms, which is always a lifeline for new people as well.
Thank you. Breakout room 7.
Hi there, folks. Just tried to add, this is Phil, tried to add a couple things in the chat. Yeah, the Lois Brooks office hours on Friday mornings, the researcher toolkit, OHR classes, and then a whole bunch of things everybody mentioned as well. And this conference. So
great. I think we're up to room 8. Do we have a reporter for room 8?
If no one else will talk for room 8, I will. Not usually shy about that, as Dave knows. We really had pretty much the same stuff that everybody else has already mentioned. I don't remember particularly hearing about user groups, but that is one thing we mentioned for particular tools out of the cybersecurity office. We're certainly running some. There are others around campus for things like coding and other IT activities. Those can be very useful for meeting and learning from your IT colleagues.
Thank you. Room 9. Don't be shy. Okay, well, somebody will have to step up, but we'll go on to room 10.
Room 10 had a lot of the same comments as well. So I'll jump on one that is more of a suggestion for the future, which would be that 2 of the 5 members of our team were relatively new hires, and they both thought it would be really great if there would be more of a prolonged new hire orientation, maybe more towards a narrow section of their division or their department. But you know, once a month for the first couple of months, have an hour set aside that you get to join with the other new hires to kind of just get together and meet and mingle and share some of the accrued knowledge. So I thought that was an interesting idea.
Well, thank you. That was a great new addition to our list. And back to group 9, anybody?
Yeah, I can step up. This is Bill Tischler. I'm actually been around since 1991, so I'm not really a new hire. But one of the things that I think is what we talked about is just having a directory to kind of the alphabet soup we have for all the acronyms that we use on campus, and it can be very confusing. And the other thing we talked about a little bit was, you know, that you know, a lot of us in IT, we're essential workers. We deal with not just technology, but you know, a lot of you know, support for the people as well, and just having the ability to informally network and connect. And I think with being around here for so long, I benefit from just knowing people. I can pick up the phone, I can talk to somebody, but for new people, that's not always the case. I think that we just need to you know, look at each other as a resource that we can draw upon without having to go through lengthy you know, submit forms and approvals and stuff like that. So.
Well, thank you for stepping up, and that was another really interesting point of the resource that we all are for each other and can be. And I'm going to turn it over to whoever's next.
Yes, and that would be me to wrap things up. So we do have a working group that's currently in progress that does include our presenters today. And if you are interested in volunteering to provide us with more feedback, more input, getting involved, please do go to that URL. And I will also throw it in the chat here. That is go.wisc.edu/IT-pro-resources. Again, that's go.wisc.edu/IT-pro-resources. And on behalf of our presenters, I want to thank you all for joining us in community today, providing us with the important input that we needed to continue on with our work. And to wrap things up, hope you enjoyed the conference thus far and hope you enjoy the remainder of the conference. And Chris, I will ask you if you have any last words of wisdom that you would like to offer to the group before we conclude today.
Oh goodness, no words of wisdom, just that I'm incredibly grateful that all of you stuck around today to have this conversation with us. And I want to thank you for all the time you spent with us, and please enjoy the rest of the conference.
I'm just going to echo a big thank you for participating.